past members of the Digital Marketer team. I think you guys did an amazing job building this company, and the community aspect, I think, is one of the biggest growing factors of marketing today, which is actually something I wouldn't have said like 6 months ago, but I actually had a meeting with, who was it? Shanna Bresnahan? I'm totally butchering her name, but I did a podcast with it. We'll post it here. Actually, Cameron, if you could find that one. But anyways, that was the podcast that convinced me that community is the future of marketing based on all the developments with AI, with the economy, with everything that's happening. I think this is it. And it relates to customer lifetime value, which if you listen to me ever, I talk about a ton. So, Suzi, what's happening with community? And do you share, my theory that it's going to be a major aspect of marketing in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, nice to meet you, by the way, and hi everybody.
Yes.
With familiar faces here. And I am I don't disagree. I think it's been integrated into marketing for a little bit now. It's just that it's kind of hard to do. And so companies kind of dip their toes into it and then say, never mind, and then allocate resources elsewhere because it's a long play. There's several reasons for it, but it's a long game. It takes time to build relationships and, get to know people on a personal level. So I would make the argument that it's been integrated into marketing for a while now, but not as much as it could be and not as strategically as it could be. And I was going to say something else, but I forgot. So
that's all right.
That's I think the intro.
Well, the crazy thing is the more I kind of thought about the development of the internet and marketing over the last 25 years, I realized that the original use of the internet was community. It was chats, it was chat rooms, it was forums, and it was all these individual communities around the internet that everybody used to go to, and you'd find your people and then you'd be happy. And then we got rid of all that because we started social media and we started, allowing, major search engines to kind of decide the content that we're going to consume and where we're going to consume it. And I think that was really unfortunate, but I think things are going to shift back the other way. But just so everybody understands, what would you really say is the marketing function of community, and how could you start to connect it to an ROI so everybody on the C-suite understands?
Yeah. I'll try to not talk forever on this because I could.
Hey, you're crazy. It's your time.
So typically, whenever I'm talking about community to C-suite or, VP levels who are trying to think of the strategy behind this and not necessarily the implementation, is you have to map it back to an actual business objective. That's where a lot of people kind of miss the mark, where they just think that, if I just build this community, people will come and we'll figure out the good stuff along the way, which is hard and likely to fail. And so whenever I'm talking to them, I try to narrow it down to one business objective. Don't try to make it do everything, especially if it's something new. So typically I try to boil it down to either getting more leads, getting customers to buy more and more often, increasing that recency and frequency, or empowering and equipping your brand advocates. So I try to, if you think of it like a funnel, what area of the funnel is this thing going to serve in your, ideal scenario before you even talk about strategy, platform, who this thing is going to, who your audience is going to be. First decide that business goal. And then we talk about, we treat it like an actual marketing strategy. Okay, what are the objectives of that goal? If you need more leads, your objectives are, I need to generate more leads. I need to convert those leads. And then you get into the strategic objectives of what the community can do to serve those. So that way, everything that you are doing trickling down to the tactics is all laddering back up to this ultimate goal. Now, measuring metrics and data in community is inherently really hard because you're trying to measure human relationships, which is very difficult. There's fancy ways to do it, but it's expensive. It can be expensive and hard. So, we talk about if there's lack of resourcing in that department, we talk about kind of leading and lagging indicators, but what your KPIs are because you've got your objectives and what you're trying to influence. So that's what you look at. Is that number going up or down? So anyway, that is my 2-minute, hopefully, sermon.
No, that's really good. Well, and I think, well, and that's actually, as marketers, and when you're trying to convince managers and whatnot, starting with those objectives, the KPIs is extremely important. And I love the advice that you just do one because that's easy to talk about versus, oh, community does everything. And I think as marketers, we're especially when we're invested in a single method, it's easy to just focus on those KPIs versus how it affects the entire company. And with community, I always think about, the operational side of it, like how many customer service issues can be handled just by the community versus having to have a whole team of dedicated customer care reps who are doing it. Plus, it's more friendly. People, I think, would rather ask a forum versus, a bot, definitely. But even a person, because the person's gonna, maybe try to sell you something, maybe try to guide your path. And I think really people trust communities more for the information versus me, the company, saying, hey, you should buy my stuff. It's like, oh no, if I let the community do the work for me, then it's 1,000 times better. So
Absolutely. Anything else
completely agree.
to say about your brand is infinitely more powerful than anything you have to say about your brand, because you as an employee, as a representative, inherently have an agenda, right? Like, and people know that. I mean, it's not like offensive, but I mean, like, you're speaking from a brand point of view, and like you have an agenda there. No matter how, nice and sweet and, caring people know. And so I think that hearing it from a peer that has their own thoughts and opinions and no stake in the game per se can be very, very powerful if, directed in productive ways.
Mm-hmm. Now let's just talk about the kind of ROI with it, just like really specifically. So I have a community, let's say I have 5,000 members. I got them in a Facebook group. We're generating some good interaction, good engagement, but it hasn't generated anything for the company or anything measurable for the company. What would you say is the best kind of first step somebody could take to start to monetize that, platform?
Yeah. So, sorry, my hesitation is that it's a complicated question.
It is a complicated question. Well, yeah, so let's keep it basic.
Broad,
just like,
yeah.
I'm trying to prove that all this money and time we spent on the community is worth it.
Absolutely. I think the surest way to do that is to start mapping it back to those objectives. So let's say that I'll try to give an example without screwing it up because I'm just doing this off the top of my brain. Let's say that your objective is, your goal is to generate more leads. Your goal is to acquire more leads. Your objective to that goal is, I need to generate these leads. Like I need people to sign up for stuff, build my list. Your strategic objective for your community, what behavior do you need to see from your community members to meet that objective? So you need them to opt into stuff. And then you have hopefully a community manager or someone who is really well versed in things like sense of community, sense of belonging, building up this sense of trust with this centralized group of people. And they can then say, this group of people is motivated to take this action because of XYZ. And what I mean by that is, in community, everything is emotion driven. Emotion drives behavior. So what emotion can you amplify within that community to make them take that action? So, and that's through community strategy, which is art and a science. But let's say that this particular community of people are very motivated by getting recognition from their peers in this group. So maybe it is, okay, we're going to create a content plan where we're going to have other community members talk about this thing. We're going to do AMAs. We're going to and they'll hear from their peers instead of from us. We might facilitate the conversation, but it'll be peer driven to get them to sign up for the thing. So you have to map it back. And that way your tactics are based on that strategic objective. The tactic was like the AMA or like whatever it is to get them to feel that thing, to take the action. That way you're resourcing and your valuable time and your valuable money. You could do anything in a community. Don't get obsessed with engagement. Like, engagement's a health metric, but it is not something that is going to make you money directly. So if it's a low engagement group, but the people who are engaged are doing exactly what you want them to do more of that thing.
That
Um,
makes sense.
so anyway, I'm talking way too much now, but
No,
I
that's really
am
good.
very
Well, I think
passionate about
it's
this topic.
well, I think it's yeah, it's just like where's the money come from? Like, what do I do? Because I think for
Yeah.
the fear with community is that somebody joins it and then they're being pitched promotions like, hey, we want you to
Oh,
do this, we want you to do that, versus teaching them something, and then maybe the
oh,
teaching leads into it, which is the content play. So just for
yeah,
example, if
I
you
see.
say, okay, we have digital marketers community, and we have the copywriting accelerator coming up, and that's a product drop for you guys because we haven't announced it anywhere, but we're coming out with the copywriting accelerator, which is going to be a live cohort based boot camp. Or not boot camp, we can't call it a boot camp, but it's a live cohort based program. So let's say we want to talk to the community about this. Would it be based on what you said? My understanding is that we should make a content play, AMA involved webinar play, and then those are related to the concept of copywriting, which then will lead into the copywriting accelerator.
It could be. I think that where knowing the digital marketer community, or whenever I mean, I ran out years and years and years ago, so it might have shifted from there.
It's not that different.
So they really, really value this sense of giving and taking from their peers. Like they're there to support each other and help each other out. And if you could find a tactic that amplifies that emotion while kind of talking about this, I think that could be a strategy. And I also want to encourage people to reframe their brain on ROI with community and think about it as return on impact rather than return on investment. Yes, you are going to see a return on investment. Like it's hard to measure, but you have to like look at things that you're trying to influence. And like, since we have implemented this particular strategy, is this number going up? Can we attribute it? But I also like, what is it worth to you to have a customer talk about how great their experience was with their product to a giant community of people? What is the worth to your company for someone to leave a amazing testimonial on it within their networks? Like, how do you there's systems in place to track that kind of stuff, but it's hard to do. Like, what is it worth to your company that someone, because they are a member of your community, is likely to purchase more and more often? Like, what is that worth? So think about like that return on impact, and what is it worth when someone keeps renewing their subscriptions because they have access to a community of people that they otherwise wouldn't have access to? That's the kind of stuff. So like the emotional relationship building is key to this. And if you make it transactional, people are going to start backing up. Because
So is it yeah well, and I'm trying to track it to, like I try with content, because content, you would typically say, okay, here's the thing we're trying to promote, the product or the lead magnet, so we're going to make this content around it, we're going to do these events for it, we're going to do these drip campaigns to support it, and that's going to lead to the sales. So I'm just trying to see, because I really think the lifetime customer value is actually the core metric that I think is going to be how we judge all campaigns, including community. But and I love the aspects of, yes, it's hard to track, and it's a different concept, and it's more branding, and it's more, but that doesn't convince any managers.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So I'm trying to get around it. So, well, how do you convince them then? Because honestly, I love the aspirational stuff. I love the empowerment. I love the customer care. I love all those aspects. I think they're 100% essential. But to somebody who's numbers driven, they are nothing. They do not speak anything. People will say, no, that doesn't matter to me. And they have no understanding. So just from your experience, like, do you have like a line that you say that convinces people? Because it's art versus science, but a lot of people see that as just an excuse for you not being able to justify your investment. And
I think that case studies are helpful. So showing like how this has worked in other brands and what other brands are doing have been helpful. The narratives that come out of community are really powerful. So whenever I was first starting to do this at Digital Marketer, which this was before the certification, like whenever we were still figuring this out, somebody had posted about a certification. Let's call it the email marketing certification. They made a post in the Facebook group and they were like, hey, has anybody gone through this? I'm trying to decide if this is for me. And I intentionally didn't touch it because I was like, I just want to see what people are going to say. And the community members started chiming in. They're like, I've been through it. It's great. I love it. And then within that conversation, other people were like, oh, I'm going to go buy that right now. I'm going to go sign up for that thing. And so I took a screenshot of that and I sent it to my boss. And I was like, this community just made you $5,000 on one post. And I didn't even do anything. Like, I didn't even comment on it. It's because we built this space for people to share this kind of stuff. And so that was like a use case, you know what I mean, for like what it is that we're doing here. So finding those narratives has been really powerful. But also, if it's possible, what I have done for the numbers folks is do like surveys. So you do 2 surveys. You do one survey for your community members, and then you do the same survey for people who are not in your community, and you compare those 2 results. So that way you can say, so the community that I ran at Meta was an advocacy community. It was like, tell your story, share your success stories, blah, blah, blah. And we were able to run this type of study, and we were able to show the numbers people that if people are a member of this community, they are X times more likely to take this action. They are X times more likely to do this. And so that was a way to put data and numbers behind things. But also we positioned ourselves as stories as a service. And that's what community can really serve is, you know, we can source whatever story you want for your marketing campaigns, for your UGC, for your content. And so it was moving into more of a supportive marketing role. And there was a lot of cross collaboration there, because then, you know, the product teams at Meta could be like, hey, we want to get a gut check on this product that we're developing for this audience. Can we like post about it in there? And we're like, that is awesome content for our community. Yes, of course. Because they were able to get like sneak peeks and talk about it and things like that. And then we were able to feed back to the product teams, you know, feedback analysis on what they were saying. So there's definitely unique ways that you can serve the company outside of direct sales and monetization. So I just wanted to like highlight that as an example as well, because community is bigger than direct sales. It is so much bigger than monetization. So it's like thinking strategically on how you can partner to empower all these other bits of the company through this like community driven element. I
love that. Yeah. So basically the community is a content generator, and the best content you could basically expect. Well, again, I'm just going back to you have to convince people, you know, convince CEOs, and all they care about is money. But yeah, if you said like, hey, this is the UGC the UGC program, and basically we're going to encourage people to contribute. We're going to generate case studies, white papers, survey information. Like, this is basically your crew that is telling you exactly what you need to do as a company, exactly where you need to go, and how to retain everybody. I think that's actually a really excellent way to explain it, basically as a content machine. You know, and I know it's more than that. I know the purpose goes way beyond that, but just from explaining it to somebody who's not a marketer or not a community, you know, person.
Yeah. So in that example, it would be, you know, back when we talk about business goals, that would be, I want to empower my advocates. To empower advocates, I need UGC, I need specific testimonials, I need white pages. Community strategy is creating a space where we can kind of tap in and generate some of that. So it's like, it all ladders back up.
Oh yeah. No, well, and it's just that explanation, because it's hard. and
it is. I've had to make arguments my whole career.
Yeah, well, and it is the core aspect. And I think what's going to happen, and kind of my theory is that since paid advertising is going to get increasingly expensive as it gets more automated and easier to set up, that, you know, the thing that everybody's going to start going back to is community, is how do we have a good product? How do we have a good service? How do we have a good, you know, customer care department? Because to date, I mean, I don't know everybody else's experience, but lately with any customer care things I've had to deal with, I'm like shocked by how rude everybody is. And I'm like, you know, I'm the customer, right? Like I keep saying that, like I'm giving you money for this, and somehow you don't care. So I think it's everything's on track for you being, you know, kind of the primary marketer as far as I could tell. So with that said, we do have some questions. Eitan, one of our favorite certified partners, has a few. So I'm just going to go through the list and we'll just go from there. So do you think it is best to have the community in your own environment on an app or website?
Probably. I think it's all very situational. I will say that a centralized community can be great. Like you own everything. However, the trade-off there, it's understanding the trade-offs, right? Like you can do anything you want, but you have to understand the impact. So if you host it somewhere on like your own app or your website, you have an extra step in training people to come there all the time. Whereas if it's hosted on something that already exists, like a Facebook group or something like that, your audiences are, you don't have to train them how to use Facebook. Like people know how to do that. So it's just adding extra steps, which means more investment and a little bit more strategy in that regard. So whether it's good or bad, it kind of depends on your resourcing, your audience, and what you want to do with this thing. So I will say largely it depends. I know I've worked with companies who have hosted it themselves. I've worked with companies who want to start out with things like Facebook groups and Slack and things like that, because they want to like test out proof of concept, or they just want to keep it there because it's cheaper, and their audience is already there and using it. So it really just, the answer is it depends, but hopefully this gives you some considerations to make whenever you're thinking platforms and location and things like that.
Well, let's say that's just their first community.
My answer still remains that you have to do your research and talk to people. But if you don't own your platform, Vienna, I think that I know the end of the sentence. I can't see the end of it. But I'm going to finish the sentence that says you don't own the data. You don't own a lot of elements that make it very hard for you. So Facebook groups are hard from the back end because you can't just get the level of data that you need. That being said, there are very sophisticated community platforms out there made by community professionals where the back end is beautiful. And you can even like customize what's reported. Like they're expensive and you have to do the extra marketing cost, and there's definitely a trade-off involved. But options are out there. I mean, you can make it do anything you want. For the question of like new communities, it just depends. Like you have to do like your member research and talk to people and figure out what they want and what you can do, and meet somewhere in the middle. And
okay, so let's say that you have, I'm just going to give you a specific example and tell you the resources, and then you can just say like, oh, here's how I recommend you set it up. So let's say you're a $500,000 a year agency run by 4 people. You want to incorporate a community component for prospecting, and you've never had a community before. You have an email list. That's pretty much it.
How big is the email list?
Let's say 15,000.
Okay. First blush, without talking to anyone and doing primary research, for a list that size, I would probably suggest proof of concept first. Because those emails, I'm assuming, aren't all prospects. Like probably a chunk of them are also
the past customers and prospecting
lists.
lists.
Refer people to this community if you have like a strong referral program in place. But that's a pretty healthy start. I typically, my personal advice is that if you're under 250, you should not be looking into a community. You are not big enough. You don't have the base. And you probably don't have the resources to kick it off and sustain it. So that's my advice to you guys. If you're thinking of like when to launch, use that as a starting point.
So
sorry, go ahead.
In that case, would you recommend a standalone, or just go with Facebook groups or something?
No, I would probably do like Slack channels or Facebook groups or something like existing already. But it also depends a lot on like what your business goal is and how you need to, like what you need to measure. If it's like critical to measure different elements, it might be worth it to invest more.
That's right.
So I'm just caveating everything because there's no like blanket rule to go by here. Like you need to be strategic and think about your specific business and goals. So I want to
the 250 advice is very helpful, because I think a lot of people think community is like how they start a business, and what you're saying is it's not necessarily.
Businesses have done it. I'm not saying it's impossible. I personally stay away from for like if a business in that level reached out to me to like help them create a community strategy, I would say you are not ready, in my professional opinion.
No,
That's not to say that you can't do it and that businesses haven't done it, but businesses that do, their risk tolerance is a lot lower. They tend to cut these programs pretty quickly. And they just don't have the resourcing or the list or the existing community elements oftentimes to make these things work. What they need is like money and cash flow, and like right now. So like even I just started my own consulting business and I don't have a community attached. Like I am not ready for a community element, and I'm a professional community builder. So it's the
Well, I
same
think
as
that's
giving
huge.
myself, you know.
Yeah, well, it's you don't make the effort until you can make the effort because
Yeah.
it's not going to be. And I see the same thing with like affiliate programs where some company will just be like, oh, I'll just throw together an affiliate program. And I always tell them like, it's not going to work unless you work it. Like, actually, it's true from every
It
marketing
really
method.
is. And I think with community, as with a lot of different things, there's a risk of a lot of brands saying, if I just build this thing, people will come. If I just open this up, people are going to come. And that is a trap.
Mm.
And it causes a lot of heartbreak and frustration and laid off community managers and things like that. So I think that I would encourage you, if you're considering community, treat it very seriously, like any other strategy, and do the work in the background to figure out what exactly it is that you need to make this thing work. And I walk people through a whole process. Like this is not something where we can just turn on a Facebook group and magic is going to happen. Like the most successful communities plan and strategize before they even open the doors.
Could you go into just not your whole spiel, but just like the basics of how the process goes?
Yeah. Well, I talked a little about it before, where it's like business goals, objectives, strategic objectives. And when you get to that strategic objectives part, that's where you do a lot of research. You start talking to people who might be primary members of this community. And you figure out what emotions they feel when they take or don't take the desired actions that you need them to take. And you really try to narrow down what it is that motivates them to take these actions. And so I give people like the feelings wheel, like the wheel of emotions. Have you guys heard of that? Like it's like all the basic emotions, and then it like gets more specific as it goes out. And whenever I'm doing these interviews with potential community members or for clients, whenever they mention an emotion, I'm like whipping out my emotion wheel, and I'm like, would you say that you're more enthusiastic or more like really like dive deep? And that way it can inform that strategic objective. So you're getting you're trying to like make the most informed guesses you possibly can on this community strategy. And then you're ready to get a community manager that can create the tactics that drive that strategic objective. And what I mean by that is, another thing that I see companies do is hire a community manager expecting them to figure out their strategy. That is not their job. Like you are hiring someone who is not equipped to do that work. So get a strategist. If you have a very strategic brain, shoot me an email. I will give you like the worksheet you can literally fill out yourself. And then you hire the community manager. So that way, when this person comes in, you can say, here's the strategic objective on what we need this community to do. The community manager will then bring in their knowledge of sense of community, of relationship building, of authenticity, of connecting people together to create the tactics that drive that strategic objective. So the two things I'm trying to get across is, don't expect to just build it and people will come, and hire your community manager to manage your community, not to do the strategic work for you. Like that is your job.
Oh no, that's That's huge advice. And I think it goes, back to your point about, this isn't a small investment of time or energy or emotion or anything else. It's a big investment of all those things. So with that said, do you think it's possible to run your own community, or is it really something that if you're a certain size and you should hire somebody specifically to manage it?
If you can, you should. There's plenty of people who do it themselves. And, it's hard. It's hard to make it work. And especially if you don't understand like the science behind everything, luckily there is a very large component of community managing that is like innate as humans. Like we're built for this stuff. Like we're built to talk to each other and connect and socialize. And, it's why we've survived this long as a species. So there's a part of it that is innate. And then there's a part of it that needs to be developed. And, certain muscles need to be flexed a little more than others and things like that. And so if you can hire someone who has built up those muscles, I think it would be better. And also, like, it takes time. And a lot of people who are doing this themselves do not have the adequate time to do all of this stuff, which is probably why they get in like Kermit Flail mode on running their business and trying to run this community and all the other things that you have to do. So, if I were to launch a community, I would probably hire someone to do it for me. So, because I've got a business to run, I can't do like the day-to-day TLC that
everything. Yeah.
Community. So,
but I will say this, I don't think this is the community aspect is something you can outsource to AI, because I know that's what everybody's thinking right now. It's not going to work. AI does not think like that most of the time.
I think there's elements of AI that can probably be built into it. As far as like maybe getting you started on content ideas or,
the general content strategy I can see, but not the commenting, not the engagement.
Please don't. I'm sure it will head that direction at some point, or at least they'll try to. There's
plenty of people who could do it. I think it's probably one of the safer marketing careers at this point is community, just for that specific reason. Is it's a relationship, and AI is not good at managing relationships.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. And there's, especially in this country, in the US, there's a freaking loneliness epidemic going on. Like people are craving this kind of communication. And I am sure that, some AI is going to come along at some point that's going to take some sort of burden off of community managers. I think it'd be great as like a moderation tool, perhaps.
We can't just digitize you and
Suzi
running everybody's community.
Okay.
Well, I've done too many questions. I'm going to go on the list. We actually have quite a few now. Let's see. Follow up for Eitan's original question, which was, should you have an app or a privatized kind of community? He says, if you do have a privatized community, what do you think is the best way to keep them in that community versus all the other social media platforms? So if you make an independent platform, how do you make sure that they use it and don't go to Facebook or Slack?
There's all sorts of tricks up here. That's the tactical stuff. For one thing, well, you always have to have a marketing plan. You gotta market the thing. And it's all about value, right? Like are people getting value out of hanging out in there? Some very general tactics just to give you ideas are like ritual content. It's anything that would bring people back to a Facebook group. You just have to work harder at it. So whenever they're going in there, are they getting value? Now, if it's a new community, no matter what platform it's on, typically when new members join, they're looking for one of two things. Is there helpful information in here for me? And is this my crew? Like, are these the people that are going to give me are they reliable? Are they authentic? Are they, they're coming in from almost like a Google search mindset,
we'll check it out.
Yeah. So is whenever they first log into your community or view it, are they seeing what will convince them to stay? And is there enough to get them to come back? So it's and you're not going to get there by broadcasting content that's on your blog. You're not going to get there by posting offers. I mean, not solely that. So I'm answering very vaguely because I mean, I'm a strategist and I deal with
it's all specific. But no, I think that the one piece of advice is if people aren't engaged and interested, the minute that they land in there, they're going to peace out. Like there's just no way to stay.
You know, there's the head of social media at Meta, his name's Eric Toda. He once said that you're always one post away from someone never viewing your content again.
So true.
Which is a lot of pressure. But I was like, man, that is the same for community. Like you're always like one communication away from someone never engaging with their content again. So be strategic with where you're putting your time and your money, and where you're really investing in this community. That was something that whenever he said that, I like tattooed it on my heart.
Yeah, it's true. Well, you know, it's actually in line with like copywriting, where you say the goal of each sentence is to get them to read the next sentence. And this is the same thing. Every interaction probably needs to be like that, or at least ish. Like, yeah, because you'll have channels, like I follow a ton of channels on YouTube, and if they post bad stuff enough times, I'll be like, all right, I don't trust you anymore. Even if I don't usually click on everything, I still leave it because I could see it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested in that, but you know, that's still around the topics I like. So I still want to get the feed. So that makes total sense.
I mean, I think the moral of the story is just treat it seriously. Like, you know, it's okay to test things and fail, but think about it and think about it, like it's a real strategy.
Be strategic. I love that. Okay, last one. Let's see. What are the top 3 best ways to drive people to your community?
The top 3 best ways that it takes to get people to do anything. You know, value for, I mean, marketing a community is really like marketing anything else. Really. I mean, answering the what's in it for me, value first. I mean, if you're talking about like pulling people in to the community, which I'm assuming this is, like getting new members to, you know, it's the same thing as marketing anything else. So, you know, my typical advice is lead with stories if you can. People like to see themselves reflected back, especially in the community sense. With everything they like that, but I mean, like, you know, if they can see themselves as members of this space, then that will help you. So I really like the narrative strategies. Have
you executed these on like a specific campaign, like say social media posts where you do aspirational phrases and see more in the community, or?
We did post for the Leaders Network, which was the advocacy community, one of the advocacy communities at Meta. And it was a video ad. We did a couple. It was a video ad that had, so it was a community for small business owners who used Meta tools in some form or fashion to grow their business, whether it was paid or organic. And we had like a little video of our members talking about their success story, and then like how this community played into that. And it was just one little sentence of like 4 different people, and stitched it all together and put some fancy graphics on it, and then ran that. And it was literally testimonials about the community, not about necessarily about Meta. They were talking about their experience, and they're tying it to like their experience being a small business owner. So when people saw that, they were like, that's me. Like, that's me. I can like hang out with these people. And then we also did like a what other ad was it?
Just to be clear, so you did a paid ad?
Yeah, it was paid.
Okay, all right. Well, that's huge right there.
Yeah.
Well, no, because it doesn't have to be a lot, I'm sure, but just to kind of, is that like a beginning task, like just to build up the base of the community, and then naturally grow?
Yeah. And then we had like referrals and things like that happened once people joined the community. So it was kind of like they fueled their own growth.
I love that.
At a certain point.
I
Um,
like the idea that launch though. So
yeah.
no, I'm getting into another question. No, I'm going to save it. No, that's really good though. Well, it's good to hear that, that's kind of common practice is to launch with, an actual marketing campaign just for the community. I think just saying that to people makes total sense. Why
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
why wouldn't you? To treat it like you market anything else. Hit up your email list, run some ads, like let people know. People aren't going to know unless they know, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Well, it just goes back to the cost and what's the
Oh, yeah, yeah.
return and all that stuff. But if you're taking it seriously, it's a serious marketing strategy, then do the work just like you would with a product. So there you go. Love that. Let's see. Binya says, how do you recommend using community to break down departmental silos between different departments? Oh, that's a great question. How do you get secondary stakeholders across departments to see the value, make the jump into community, find their voice, and feel like each department is getting what they need?
I love this question. I love it so much. And the reason why I love it is because this was a big part of what turned into a big part of my job when I worked at Meta, because I don't know if you guys know how big this company is. Thousands and thousands of people. There are teams that I didn't know existed, and I worked there for like 3 years. So it was one thing that I learned how to do when I was there that I had never heard of before was stakeholder management, which is something, I don't know if it's just like something like just corporate companies do. This was my first time working in corporate, but it's something that I'm taking with me no matter what company I work at in the future, no matter how big or small they are, which is if I saw a team there who I thought maybe we could work together, maybe they should know what we do. So there's like some cross synergies there. I would try to get a meeting with the head of that team, and then I would interview them and like actively listen and not pitching mine. I was just like, I tell them what I do, but I'm like, I am here to listen to you. Like, what are your goals? What are your KPIs? What projects are you prioritizing right now? And like interview them and really listen. And then map it out on I have like my own, like just for me, like a spreadsheet of the stakeholder, and I marked where they would fall in the community. So like, would they be more of a make it happen or a help it happen or no commitment, and how then can I move them along? So then I could really strategize. Well, everything is a strategy, y'all. With like, this person needs to be on like our monthly leadership email with like our metrics that go out every month. And maybe I can see if they want to do like a Q&A in the group so I can like promote their project, or, you try to complement their goals with what you're doing and be proactive in that approach. So don't wait for another team to be like, hey, do you think the community could like help me out with this thing? Like, seek it out. So if that's how you get out of this silo. So, with like all the different marketing teams, I would work to understand what their goals are and then be like, hey, I have an idea. I can use this community program to help you meet your goal quicker, more efficiently, more effectively. Here's my idea. Let's collaborate. And then you do that enough times, eventually people seek you out and they're like, hey, I heard that you can like work some magic with this thing. And then you're like, actually, yes, I can. I am a magician, actually. And and then, it helps you get more resourcing. It helps you get more advocates internally. Whenever people are like, what is this community thing? You have a million other team members in different teams who are like, whoa, let me tell you about how awesome this is. So it actually like helps build credibility internally as well. So if you're looking to get out of silos, my professional advice and what has really worked for me is be proactive. Do not wait around for someone to think of a wonderful idea. Be that person, and really think about how you're interacting with your stakeholders and how you can move them along their own little commitment curve of support for your program. So I love that. Hope that answers the question.
I think so. And it's very good answer, because I think, just using the community as kind of a basis for helping other marketing teams is huge, because it's, because I came from content and I was thinking like, well, what's the content I could get out of this? And there's so much content you could have. You could literally take like an answer to somebody's post and turn that into something amazing, and even cite the person who wrote it, which then reinforces the community, shares it with the public. lets people know the community exists because you shared that information with the public, and it was a social media post, and it was blah 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 blah. So yeah, that's a great answer.
I
And
know
just
someone who's done that. Like, she took screenshots from her community of testimonials, turned it into a Facebook ad, and generated thousands of dollars. Like,
yeah,
for
that's
free.
huge. That's how you justify community. Just say,
Yeah.
hey, it's your generator. Like, do you want a manufacturing plant that just makes content constantly that's exactly from your customer because they bought from you before? Yeah, no, that's a really good way to explain it. Well, and, the funny thing is, like, what you described is ridiculous from an organizational standpoint just because it's meta, but you get past a certain mark, probably like $100 million mark, and most companies are siloed like this, and there's all these independent projects and nobody's talking to each other.
Incredibly siloed there. But I think no matter the size of your company, even if you have a small one, knowing where your stakeholders are, both internally and externally, really helps to kind of take things to the next level. I typically don't recommend people do like stakeholder mapping like when they're first starting out, because they've got like a million other things to worry about. But like once you get kind of established with the community strategy, stakeholder management can kind of be helpful to just organize yourself a little bit more and kind of take things to the next level.
Oh yeah. Well, and all managers, if you're like, oh, guess what? You don't have to do that $20,000, customer survey report because I have all the information for you. Here's a list of 1,000 testimonials. Like, what do you want? I have it all. That's a great way to, prove your worth too. And also just keep everybody happy. Everybody be like, yeah, the community is essential. You don't touch that. That's great advice. Okay. Couple more questions. How can you use algorithms to engage the community, and does it pose more of a risk or benefit?
Algorithms.
I'm thinking formulas of analyzing engagement. Actually, Musenj, if you want to come up.
Can you rephrase that? Algorithms can mean a lot of different things to different people.
Yeah, just what does algorithms mean? There.
When I worked at Meta, our community loved to throw out the word algorithm, and I'm like, that
I know. It's like Google. I'm like, oh God, no more algorithms.
At least to like programmers and the engineers that I talk to, I'm like, I can't do that.
No, don't use that word. Yeah, that's inviting pain. Did you want to?
Good evening.
Good meeting.
Good evening.
Hi, we can hear you.
We can hear you. Go for it.
Yes, I wanted to. Hello, hi. Yes, I do social media marketing, and I'm really grateful for joining this meeting. I want to understand how you can use algorithms, because from a basis, most people use AI to try and understand how communities make themselves feel comfortable and basically just do certain activities on the internet, for example, on Facebook, Instagram. And I've been there quite a while now, so I would just like to know how the new algorithms for the community.
I only picked up. Did you pick up? I got parts of it, but my understanding is that using AI to analyze, say, the comments on individual community posts, and then using the feedback from AI to analyze it, and then enact those actions in the community. Which actually isn't a bad idea.
No, there's companies that do that for you now. Like you can hire company, like we've hired companies at Meta before that would like analyze the sentiment of things and like tell us the trends that are happening and things like that. Like that is totally something that I think it's a viable use of AI. I think where you're going to trip up right now in this current space is you won't be able to just access it in all platforms. But I mean, if there's creative ways to tie them together, I think that that's a perfectly amazing use of AI to just kind of help you streamline, what's happening in your community and, identifying trends and sentiment and how people are reacting to things. Like, I think that that's perfectly fine. Right now, the best community managers are ones who are like, I know how this community lives and breathes. I know what makes them tick. I know exactly how people are going to respond to this. Like they just like know because they're in it all the time. So I would also caution you that you also need that human element to provide the human context behind the AI readouts. There's always going to need to be someone there to like add the narrative and the context behind these things, and provide that like human element, because even if we reach like singularity, like I feel like you're going to need that human to be like, wait a minute, I like know this person. Like you're going to need someone there to just bridge that gap. I don't think that we're quite to the place where like AI is going to pass every Turing test we can throw at it, but like I think that long story short, sorry, I'm rambling again, that using AI in that way to track algorithms and trends and things like that, it would be great.
Yeah, I think that's a great use of it too, especially if you're not sure what to post or if you're looking to analyze anything. I was just thinking, I'm like, oh, you know what you could do is if you have a trending topic that you see happening on any platform and you had basically like an avatar, like you talked about making for your community members, you could actually just take the topic, feed it into AI and say, hey, what would be interesting about this topic for this community member? And then it could spit out content for you just in order to engage with your community. It's a little bit of a cheat, but it's easier than following the news all the
It
time.
makes your brain think faster, right? I think that the thing about community content is positioning it so it actually builds community. Like say what you're needing to say, but also how is it connecting peers to each other? How is it getting people talking and discussing? How is it building relationships and not just giving out content? Which is hard for AI to do. I've played around with it. It is very it's very good at the information part, and the community building part is incredibly generic and not very creative. And at this point in time anyway, I don't think that like community building is necessarily the number one priority of AI development right now. It's more about the informational piece, but I think that that's a great way to kind of just like shortcut, you know, getting started and things like that. So yeah.
No, and the idea side, I think if you're using it for that, I would just be careful, because I think the human element is the reason you're doing community. So if you started to default everything to algorithms and assumptions that you're making based on avatars, even, is not a great idea. Be the community. That would be the lesson there. All right. Well, we are out. We have 3 minutes. Can you take one more question, Suzi?
Yeah. Let's do this.
All right, last question. All right. So for the Community Professionals Unconference, we have a burgeoning speaker program for incredible community professionals that are still up and coming. Do you have any recommendations for people we should follow? So up and coming community professionals that we should follow.
Yes. Nicole, Vienna, what is Nicole's last name? Do you know? The community. Okay, so follow the community.
That's Vicky.
Yeah. They're great. They just started earlier this year, and it is a community for community people. She's doing the founder of that is doing some really cool stuff. Follow CMX, the CMX Hub. They're really, really great for newer community professionals. They've been around forever. Used to be run by David Spinks, and then it got bought out a couple of years ago by a company called Bevy. But great. They do like a CMX summit every year. They are a very, very giving, loving crew of people. They have a great Facebook group, CMX Hub. I would also check out Feverbee has wonderful forums and trainings for community managers, but it's a little more, the trainings are a little more high level, but the forum itself is really great. Please check out Evan Hamilton. He used to be the head of community at Reddit. He has a newsletter that goes out called the Community Breakfast, and it is one of the best community-based newsletters on the planet. So Evan Hamilton is a really great person to follow as well. Nikki, that's her name. Thank you. The community. Thanks. Yeah, that's top of my brain. Also read lots of books on social hierarchy and community building. And one of my favorites on social media and how social media and community combine is called Contagious by Jonah Berger. Fantastic book. Yeah, sorry, I can talk about resources.
Oh, this is fantastic. We'll have to have you do an article about who to follow if you're a community manager or aspiring to be. Well, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you coming on, Suzi. Where can people find out about you and not your community, because you said you don't have one yet, but soon?
Yeah. Well, I am at nelsonCommunityConsulting.com. It's my little Squarespace site that's literally been out for like a month. But right now I've been mostly focused on coaching calls and trainings for teams on community-centric marketing and running communities. And I do like community strategy work for brands. So you can find me there. And I've just been doing kind of you can try SuziNelson.com. I don't know if that one's available. I see someone posting it. I think it might not be. I don't remember. I own it, but I don't think that I've updated it in a while.
Oh, coming
soon. So try NelsonCommunityConsulting.com. And you can, sign up for my mailing list that I have not used yet. And click around. And if you have any questions, my email is on there too. So happy to chat.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Suzi. This has been very enlightening. I think it's it's great to hear that you have kind of answers for all the stuff that community members have to deal with, which is not a light load. And I know exactly what you're going through, because I used to be the guy pushing content all the time, and everybody's like, what does that even do? And I'm like, it's who you are online. I don't know how to explain it better, but I think it's going to make headways. And I think that, again, community managers are one of the safest marketers that you could be right now. So I hope you do really well. And anybody who wants to learn more about community, definitely follow Suzi, because she's awesome. This has been Agencies Talk. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week and every Friday at 11 a.m. Central. So tune in for more agencies talking to each other about stuff. See ya.